Hi everyone, this is Miss Sipe. I'm going to be reading chapter 20. It might need to be broken down into two parts. Chapter 20 is pretty long. Chapter 20 is only a couple pages and we're wrapping up the book. So listen and hear how things are resolving as I read, okay? Question number 483. Is there a limit for divorce, like an age limit? Or old people like Grandma and Grandpa can't get one, right? Go to bed, go to bed. Ernie hated it when his mom told him to go to bed after he'd seen something that was going to keep him awake for like the rest of his life. Go to bed for what? It wasn't like he could sleep. Excuse me. It was like when his mother used to say go to bed so that Santa could come and leave him gifts when he was younger. Who could sleep knowing, excuse me, I have to grab my tea. My iced tea, sorry. I'll share my iced tea recipe with you guys if you want me to, okay? Who could sleep knowing that some magic man is coming to bring you presents? Nobody. Didn't old people know that? It wasn't fair. Jeannie wasn't going to bed anyway. Once he got under the covers, it was like his mind was flipping TV channels. Like Channel 1, Samantha barking. Channel 2, Grandma yelling. Channel 3, Grandpa crying after Grandma swiped the gun pieces into the garbage can. After everything that happened, Jeannie wanted nothing to do with guns anymore. Ever. He was over it. No guns. He figured he would just ask his mom and dad to sign him up for karate class, too. You know, Pete and repeat style. As if sleeping wasn't hard enough, the crickets and the frogs were out, too. And for the first time, their chirping was annoying. Man, they were loud. Almost as loud as Ernie. Finally, Jeannie just pulled the pillow over his head, and then he realized he didn't want to go to sleep because the morning would come sooner. Then he'd have to deal with whatever arrangements were going to follow Grandma throwing away Grandpop's gun. Grandpop was probably going to nail himself into his room and have food slide under the door. Flat food. Did Grandma even know how to make pizza? That was the last thing he recalled, because the next thing he knew, it was morning, and everything was stranger than Jeannie ever even imagined. Grandpop was sitting right there in the kitchen, in his chair. He was poking at the scrambled eggs on his plate and listening to the radio buzzing with old-school music. Grandma was sitting across from him, still in her nightdress, sipping tea, flipping through her old book, straightening up photos. It was like the night before it had never happened. "Morning, Jeannie," she sang out. "Mornin'," he said, not sitting. "Morning, Jeannie," Grandpop said, also sounding all happy. Jeannie hesitated. Why was everyone acting so normal? The screen door creaked as Ernie came in, already sweaty, the doctor's mask the only thing reminding Jeannie that things were still real. "About time you got up, ma'am," he said, wiping pea garden dirt on his shorts. He headed straight to the sink, filling a glass to the top with water, pulling the mask down and guzzling the whole thing down. Then he headed straight back outside. Grandma got up and set the plate on the table in Jeannie's place. "Grits, sausage, and toast. Sit down and eat, and then go help your brother." "I'm not really hungry," Jeannie replied uncomfortably. He just wanted to get outside. Maybe snap peas in half, toss poop around, anything besides sitting here in this bizarre table. "Hold on, Littlewood," Grandpop said, reaching for Jeannie's arm. "Let me just say something to you." Then he looked over at Grandma, like she was supposed to give him words. He started. He swallowed hard, then he cleared his throat. "Look, I just wanted to say I'm sorry about last night, about everything." Jeannie's mom had always said that when a person says that they're sorry, to do your best to forgive them, no matter what. "Me too, baby," Grandma followed with a lopsided smile. "Okay." Jeannie didn't really know what he was supposed to say. It wasn't like he could say, "My mother and father argue. I don't want you and them to get divorced, because then I'll have to figure out which parent to live with and which grandparent to visit." Grandma nodded, but she pulled Jeannie's head down, and she could kiss it on. She nodded, pulled Jeannie's head down so that she could kiss it on the top. "Now eat," she ordered, gently pushing him into his chair. She laid a hand on Grandpop's shoulder. She reached up and laid one on top of hers. Jeannie guessed that whatever they talked about last night, when he was upstairs praying for his own deafness and the end of Grandpop's sobbing, the sound of black sheep, went well. Well enough for them to hold hands, well enough for them to say sorry, and he couldn't help but think that if Grandma and Grandpa could do that after what happened, then maybe Ma and Dad could too. Outside, Ernie was in the garden snapping pea pods off left and right. He and Jeannie didn't even have to look at what they were doing anymore. They could tell which peas were ready just by the feel of them. When Ernie saw Jeannie coming toward him, his cheeks lifted the mask enough for Jeannie to know he was smiling. The sun was turned up. God had put the heat on high, as Ma always said. The hose lay curled in the grass like a giant worm. The mosquitoes were thirsty, and the flies flew all around Jeannie's face, buzzing so loud he felt like he had stuck his head into Grandpop's radio. "You all right?" Ernie asked, slapping at a mosquito on the back of his leg. "Before we got here, you never slept later than me. Now you be snoozing." "Yeah, I'm good," Jeannie shrugged. Then he decided then that he was going to tell Ernie what happened. Now that Grandma knew technically the secret was out, so it wasn't wrong to tell Ernie. "I just got in trouble last night." "Trouble? With who?" "Grandma." Ernie did a head shake. "For what?" Jeannie pulled a pod, squeezed the pod. "Nothing in it, not yet." "You're going to keep it a secret?" It wasn't really a secret anymore, but still. "Of course I will," said Ernie. There were little sweat drops all around his forehead, like see-through little pimples. "Okay, Grandpop and I come outside late, almost every night in the dark." "What? You and Grandpop? You come outside at night?" Ernie said it like a robot. "Yeah, wait. Why?" At first, he just wanted to get used to being outside again so that he wouldn't be afraid to go in the woods when it was time for you to learn how to shoot. Jeannie pressed at another pea pod. "Ready. But now, we just do it because he likes to, that's all. We just come out and we walk to different parts of the yard. We talk." Jeannie caught himself. "Well, there's days where mostly he talks. I mean, it's cool." He squeezed another pod. This one was a good one. He felt a little shy about telling Ernie about the next part. But last night, well, he was drunk, and Samantha started barking, and it woke up Grandma. "And she didn't know what you were all doing?" "Of course not." Ernie's eyes got big. "What'd she do?" "She threw his gun in the trash." "What? Why?" "Because he wanted to go to bed and she wanted to talk. So she just threw it away?" Ernie's eyes were totally bugging. "Not that I care, but what'd she want to talk about that was that important?" "I don't know. Maybe it was just tired of him being all weird and stuff." It was crazy. Grandpop was crying. I mean, like crying. She sent him to bed, but I couldn't sleep after all that. "No joke? That's why you slept so long this morning? Wow, are you good?" Ernie shook his head. Jeannie thought about it for a second. "They said they were sorry, so yeah, I'm okay." Ernie extended his hand and he gave Jeannie a high five, pulling him in for a little hug. Then he hunkered back down between the vines. And after a second, he popped back up empty-handed. "Want to see something? I've been doing it all morning." Jeannie nodded, hoping it was like more dog tricks, like Samantha learning to talk. Better yet, maybe Ernie taught her how to shut up. That would have been nice last night. Ernie pointed to a cluster of peas. "See these?" He tapped one of the pods. "Watch." He stepped back, then came catch forward and did a karate kick, then a crane kick, and then a hi-ya! He knocked a whole bunch of those pea pods right up the vine. Jeannie had seen him do some sweet karate stuff, but this was definitely one of the best. And now he noticed all the loose peas, like the little green marbles. They were all over the ground, like hundreds of pods had just exploded. Ernie picked up the handful of them. He held them in the air like a warrior, and Jeannie knew that his brother Ernie was back. Well, he was for the day, and for the next two. Day 26 and day 27. But on day 28, when Grandma dropped the bomb on him that the next day was the day he had to go see the teeth man, Ernie went right back to being weird. "This is not a big deal, son," Grandma kept saying. "Tomorrow he's just going to look. He probably won't even touch nothing." But Ernie retied the strap of the face mask before replying, "I just don't get why I even have to do this. Ma and Dad will be here in like a few days. And then in Brooklyn, I can go see my dentist, Dr. Wilson, who I don't like, but at least I know him, and he doesn't sell other people's teeth. We're going because I told your parents that we would, and because I need to know that you're fine before you go home, for my own sanity." The lamp was on, and the whole bedroom seemed to glow orange. Ernie sat on the edge of the bed while Grandma folded up his clothes that she had just washed for him. She brought a stack of T-shirts to the blue bureau, and she glanced at the truck for a moment. She didn't seem to notice it had been fixed. Maybe because the piece of the original wheel was still on the dresser. But that was fine with Jeannie, because it wasn't like the truck was back to normal. It wasn't like Grandma was going to be able to ignore the plastic button that was slightly larger and slightly thinner than the original. Jeannie just wanted to fix it and let it be fixed, just to correct his mistake. And he had done that the best he could. So he was good. Grandma patted Ernie's knee. "Dentists see kids who've had their teeth knocked out all the time," she assured him, tucking his shirts into the drawer. "It's what they're trained to deal with." Ernie stayed scowling. Grandma moved to the shoes and the jeans, telling Jeannie to start matching up his socks. "Puffs or knots?" Jeannie said. "Your call." Okay, puffs. They were easier. Another puff number 6 was a light tap on the door, and it was opened, and then Grandpop stepped hesitantly in the room, running his fingers along the wall. Safe for me to come in?" he said. Jeannie, who imagined him winking, said, "Yup. You built the house," Grandma said, smirking. Ernie didn't say anything. "Good," Grandpop said. "Mary, let me get a second with the other men of the house, please." Grandma's nostrils flared, but she laid the shorts next to the shirts, and she left the room, giving Grandpop a little nudge as she did. Jeannie couldn't help but wonder, what is this? What if he was caught? What if he knew everyone was focused on Ernie and that he was still a bird killer, and Ernie lost a tooth, but Grandpa lost a bird that most likely, Jeannie decided, symbolized Uncle Wood. Symbolize, what does that mean, right? Like it's a symbol for it. So think about why he's thinking about Michael Jackson and how could that be symbolic to Uncle Wood. Grandpa's backyard being eaten by a snake. Oh, but Michael Jackson was probably somewhere in Grandpa's backyard being eaten by a snake. This was it. This was it. Grandpa waited downstairs to make sure that Grandma was all the way downstairs, and then he said, I understand that you're going to see Binks tomorrow, Ernie. The cat released Jeannie's heart and got Ernie's tongue instead. Well, I want you to know that ever since the accident happened, I've been thinking about how I could make it up to you. At first I thought maybe I could give you my teeth. Then he reached into his mouth and he yanked the whole top row out. Spit strings dangled like cobwebs, and Grandpa's smile was in the palm of his hands. In his hands. Ah! Jeannie hadn't even known that that man had fake teeth. That's how is he chomping all those apples? But I figured you wouldn't want them because you still got your own. Grandpa's voice sounded really different without teeth. His top lip tucked under behind his bottom. He looked like a bulldog. Brooke the blind bulldog. Jeannie choked back a laugh. Ernie didn't. Grandpa shoved his top row back in his mouth, clicking them against the bottom until it was right. Dang, I thought they would at least get a smile. He said this clearly to Ernie, who stared out the window. Jeannie didn't know how Grandpa knew that Ernie was smiling, but at this point, Jeannie had stopped questioning how Grandpa did most of the things that he did. Why, the other day he even saw Grandpa write a list of things that he needed from the grocery store in a notebook. Every word was on the line. I'm smiling, Grandpa, Jeannie offered. Ernie shot a look at Jeannie. Jeannie shrugged and mouthed, What? Okay, no more jokes. Grandpa brushed his hair with his hand a few times. Ernie, I know right now that you hate me. And if you're anything like your daddy, you'll probably feel that way for a long time. And I won't say that I don't deserve it, but I will say that I'm sorry. And I know you didn't want to go see the crazy old dentist. Grandpa stopped. He must have realized that it probably wasn't the best thing to say. I mean, he's a good dentist. He's just peculiar, but he knows what he's doing. Grandpa leaned his head in toward Ernie's direction. I know you're scared, he went on. Then he made his way slowly toward Ernie's bed until his knees bumped the mattress. And then he sat down and he said, Here's what I want you to know. I am scared sometimes too. It's funny. He rested his back on his arms. I've been living in the dark for a long time now, and sometimes it still scares me to death. But times when I can't see the old photos or the letters from my son, or I can't look at the anger on your daddy's face and now on yours, I think to myself, well, being blind isn't that bad all the time. To Jeannie, that was a crazy statement. Being blind had to be bad. You couldn't see. And when he thought about all of the things he was lucky to see, like stars and model cars and Shelley, he knew for a fact that Grandpa couldn't have meant that. But then again, after seeing Grandma's face when she was disappointed, and his mother's always exhausted expression, and imagining how Grandpa's face was just going to melt when he found out about Michael Jackson, Jeannie could sort of understand. Grandpa rocked back and forth and stood up. He reached for the dresser. He ran his hand over the medals and the flag. I'm going to leave you guys alone. But first, Ernie, I want to give you these. Grandpa took off of his sunglasses. He kept his eyes closed. Should have given you these days ago. Take them. I have others. I know yours are broken. So here. Jeannie gave Ernie a take them look. Since they'd been there, Jeannie had never once seen Grandpa take off his glasses, not even once. And now he was giving them to Ernie? Whoa. Ernie finally turned toward Grandpa. He hesitated, put a hand out, hesitated again, then grabbed Grandpa's sunglasses. And then he did. And then when he did, Grandpa's opened his eyes. Holy moly! Grandpa's eyes? Oh, man, they were strange. Like fogged up windows. Like they almost didn't look real. It was almost like there were clouds inside Grandpa's head, floating around behind that glass. Jeannie couldn't stop staring, all of the while praying that Grandpa couldn't tell he was staring. He tried to get himself together, but he couldn't help thinking about if Grandpa took out his teeth and his sunglasses off, he basically looked like a zombie. Whoa. Thanks, Ernie said. trying to be cool and trying to pretend like he wasn't shocked by Grandpop's eyes or by the fact that he was giving him his shades. Jeannie couldn't pretend at all, and he was glad that Grandpop couldn't see him at the moment because he couldn't stop looking. Grandpop reached his hand out, searching for Ernie's. Ernie met his, and they shook on it. Grandpop squeezed and said, "Let's start over." He gripped Ernie's hand tight. "The first one is always like this. The rest are fives." Grandpop paused, but he didn't turn around. He just took a breath. And then under that breath, he started counting his steps. Question number 484. Why do Grandpop's eyes look like ice? Question 485. Why do young people lose their teeth? Just to get new ones? And then they get old and then they lose those too? And why do teeth only grow? Why do teeth only grow back once? It seems like they should just keep growing back like fingernails. And how come teeth ain't called mouth nails, or fingernails should be called finger teeth? Question 487. Do old birds lose their beaks? Do they crack them pecking things? Or do they change the way they sing? And question number 488. Why do they sing anyway? Is it the song of a bird different if the bird is in a tree or in the sky or in a cage? Okay, we're almost done. So think about all the things that you heard and how things are kind of being resolved, which is the conflict of Grandpop going outside, thinking about Janie going out there. Now that they all kind of know that's what's happened, and then he's giving Ernie the shades, and Ernie's about to go visit the dentist, and we're going to see what happens. Please, when you're done watching, go into Schoology in the discussion and answer some questions, okay? I miss you guys. I hope you like the story. It's going to have a good ending.